Lena Hart never planned on becoming the quiet backbone of a crumbling logistics empire. Yet that's exactly what she became at Axis Freight Solutions, a mid-sized transportation company with outdated systems, rigid protocols, and a culture that treated people more like tracking numbers than humans. When Lena first joined as a dispatch associate, she walked into a beige, fluorescent world where efficiency mattered more than empathy, where drivers were shuffled like puzzle pieces, and where clients were expected to adapt to the system instead of the system adapting to them. Nobody asked questions. Nobody improved anything. Everyone just followed the script. Punch in, push tickets, take complaints, get yelled at for issues you weren't allowed to fix, then punch out. Lena had been with Axis for only a few days before boredom nearly drove her out the door. But beneath the monotony, she noticed something deeper, something broken. Drivers calling in with the same unresolved problems, clients frustrated over small, preventable mistakes, accounts quietly slipping away because no one bothered to remember a delivery preference, a time window, or the name of someone's receptionist. These weren't huge operational failures. They were human failures. And in a place run by numbers-only leadership, human details were treated as useless noise. At the center of this rigid structure stood Morgan Blake, Lena's supervisor. Morgan ran the department like a machine. Sharp voice, sharp rules, sharp limits. If something wasn't in the handbook, it didn't exist. She believed in protocols the way other people believe in religion. Anything soft, anything emotional, anything not directly contributing to a KPI was dismissed as weakness, or worse, as a waste of company time. To Morgan, logistics was pure math. To Lena, logistics was relationships. Their clashing philosophies were inevitable. In the shadows of Axis's cold environment, Lena built something the company didn't know it desperately needed. A private, off-the-record client engagement tracker, an entire ecosystem of notes, patterns, family updates, and quirks she gathered quietly over months. Not because she wanted recognition, but because the people behind the shipments actually mattered to her in a way the system refused to acknowledge. One client's daughter starting chemo, another struggling after a funeral, a driver asking for Friday off because his son had graduation. None of these details fit into Axis's rigid software, but they fit into Lena's understanding of how loyalty truly worked. Outside Axis, another power waited. Ava Cole, an executive from NovaTrack Logistics, a rising competitor known for innovating where old companies stagnated. Ava wasn't loud, but she was observant. She watched people the way others watched markets, and she had been watching Lena's work from a distance long before Lena realized her quiet empathy was shifting customer behavior across an entire region. These three women, Lena, Morgan, and Ava, stood at the heart of a story that would unravel an old empire and build a new one from scratch. Their roles were clear: the builder, the destroyer, and the visionary waiting for the right moment to extend a hand. If you want, I can continue rewriting Section 2 in the same tone and style, or turn this into a YouTube-ready narration script. Lena discovers the cracks and quietly builds a system no one asked for. Lena didn't set out to reinvent the way Axis Freight Solutions handled clients. At first, she was simply trying to survive another day in a department where problems looped endlessly, each one shrugged off like an unavoidable weather pattern. But over time, the repetition started to grate. Drivers complained about the same malfunctioning scanners week after week. Clients kept calling about shipments being dropped at the wrong door or showing up during the only hour they weren't available. It wasn't negligence, just a company operating on autopilot, too rigid and too proud to adjust. Most employees at Axis eventually became numb to it. They learned to ignore the complaints and push tickets into the system, knowing nothing would change. But Lena couldn't tune it out. Every frustrated pause on the phone, every tired sigh from a driver stuck on a bad route, every client who hesitated before saying, "It's fine, we'll figure it out." She heard it all. Not as noise, but as information. Patterns. Human signals the system refused to register. So she started something Axis never asked for her own unofficial, invisible infrastructure. Late at night, long after the calls quieted, Lena opened a blank tab on her dispatch dashboard. It was nothing special at first, a simple spreadsheet, a few rows of notes. But it grew quickly. She logged delivery preferences that Axis's software didn't care about. She noted when a client's warehouse manager was retiring. She tracked when someone's child was sick or when their dog had surgery. She remembered which drivers hated early routes and which clients needed gentler tone after a rough week. It wasn't sentimental, it was strategic. Small empathy, applied consistently, turned into reliable outcomes. Missed deliveries dropped, complaints softened, conversations became easier. Sometimes it was as simple as shifting a route by an hour or adding a reminder to check in after someone mentioned something difficult. Lena didn't treat clients like they were fragile. She treated them like they were real, and real people responded. Soon, clients began asking for her specifically, not because she bent rules or offered discounts, but because she listened. Drivers brought her coffee, donuts, breakfast burritos, little thank yous for remembering details no one else bothered with. The dispatch team jokingly called her the human CRM, half in admiration, half in disbelief. But the numbers told the truth. Fewer cancellations, faster resolutions, and a warmth in the client relationships that Axis hadn't seen in years. Still, Lena kept her system quiet. She wasn't trying to undermine anyone. She wasn't chasing praise. She was simply doing what she wished the company would do: pay attention. What Lena didn't realize was that her quiet work had already begun changing the entire region. Patterns in the data were shifting. Customer retention was climbing. Referral rates ticked upward. And somewhere in the background, someone outside Axis had noticed. A competitor who understood that in logistics, loyalty isn't built through discounts or automation. It's built through people. Lena thought she was just trying to solve daily frustrations. She didn't know she was building the foundation of a new empire. Rising tension. Lena's success puts her on a collision course with Morgan. It didn't take long for Morgan Blake to sense something was shifting in her department. She couldn't explain it at first, only that clients seemed unusually calm on the phone. Drivers were suddenly cooperative, and metrics that had been stagnant for years were quietly improving. None of it came from her directives, which made the changes feel almost suspicious. Then she started hearing the same line from clients and drivers. "Can I speak with Lena?" To Morgan, this was the first red flag. In her world, individuality was a threat. Personalization was inefficiency. Anything that fell outside the rigid Axis Freight playbook was considered dangerous freelancing. And Lena, with her soft voice and sharper instincts, was suddenly everywhere managing crises, smoothing conflicts, and reviving accounts that Morgan had written off long ago. The more Lena succeeded, the more Morgan bristled. She pulled Lena aside one morning, her tone clipped and cold. "Stop wasting time with side chatter," Morgan snapped. "You're not a therapist." Lena didn't argue. She never did. She simply nodded, returned to her desk, and kept doing exactly what was working. But Morgan wasn't just irritated. She was threatened. When the regional meeting rolled around and the CEO proudly displayed a 38% rise in client satisfaction, something Axis hadn't achieved in 6 years, every set of eyes in the room shifted toward Lena. She didn't smile, but her coworkers did. They knew. Morgan didn't clap. She didn't even pretend. Instead, she retaliated the Axis way, through process. She handed Lena a thick memo demanding a full-year audit of every client interaction she had touched: calls, notes, follow-ups, route changes, formatted for executive review. It was punishment disguised as evaluation. What Morgan didn't know was that this assignment wouldn't expose Lena. It would prove her power. Morgan didn't wait long to strike. The morning after Lena submitted her 60-page analysis, a report so detailed it could have been a graduate thesis, an email hit the entire department. Mandatory training. Attendance required. Conference room. 2 hours. Topic: improving client communication efficiency. Lena already knew it was a setup, but she showed up anyway. The room was packed with dispatchers, route coordinators, and a few supervisors squeezed along the back wall. Morgan stood at the front, one hand on the mouse, the other tucked into her blazer like she was about to deliver a TED Talk no one asked for. "Thanks for coming," she said, voice crisp with manufactured authority. "Today we're going to discuss what works and what wastes time." Click. The projector lit up. Not with HR slides, not with Access policies, but with the cover page of Lena's report. Her stomach dropped. She recognized every line, every color-coded chart. "We'll start with some examples," Morgan announced, still refusing to look at her. The next slide appeared, a note Lena had written about a client whose delivery was delayed during a family funeral week. Morgan read it aloud in a mocking tone, mimicking sympathy. "So apparently we're tracking emotional stress now. Fascinating." No one laughed. Not one person. Click. Another slide. "Customer's kid broke leg. Allow extra time on unload call." Morgan scoffed. "Are we sending flowers too? Maybe a teddy bear?" Still silence. A thick, suffocating silence. Click after click, she dragged Lena's work across the screen. Notes about warehouse retirements, hospital stays, family emergencies, driver weddings. Every line meant something to someone, but to Morgan, each was ammunition. Lena sat frozen, hands gripping her chair so hard her knuckles whitened. She wasn't embarrassed. She was burning, humiliated, furious, and strangely calm all at once. And then Morgan delivered the final blow. She navigated to the shared drive, hovered the mouse over Lena's engagement folder, the one she had quietly built for a year. "I've decided we don't need this clutter anymore." Delete. One tap. Like she was killing a spider. The screen blinked. The entire folder, Lena's invisible masterpiece, vanished. A low rustle went through the room. Someone whispered, "Jesus." Morgan turned back, straight-faced. "Starting next quarter, we focus on hard metrics only." Lena didn't move. Her face felt hot, her pulse loud. She wasn't shattered. She was sharpened. And then her phone buzzed. She slipped out of the room, pretending to head to the bathroom. The buzzing continued. She answered on the second ring. "Lena Hart speaking." "Lena, this is Ava Cole from NovaTrack Logistics. We've been following your work." A pause. A breath. "That meeting you're in right now? Consider it a gift. If you have 5 minutes, I'd like to talk opportunity." And in that hallway, heart pounding, humiliation still fresh, Lena's entire life pivoted. Lena pressed her back against the hallway wall, trying to steady the shaking in her hands. Ava's voice was calm, confident, like someone who already knew the answer to the question she hadn't asked yet. "We've been watching the client retention trend at Axis," Ava said, "and let's just say your fingerprints are everywhere." Lena swallowed hard. "You're referring to the engagement system I built?" "Exactly. Clients mention you by name, drivers too. Two who recently joined NovaTrack said you were the only person who ever actually listened. Lena blinked, stunned. She had worked in the shadows, yet somehow the shadows had echoed. So, Lena said slowly, what are you offering? Ava didn't hesitate. Director of Client Integration. You build the system your way. Remote optional. Full autonomy. Base salary $500,000. Profit share. No corporate handcuffs. Lena's breath caught. You're not asking me to bring over client data. No, Ava said. I'm asking you to keep being exactly who you are. That was it. No pitch deck, no endless interview rounds, just recognition, pure and clean. I accept, Lena said. Ava exhaled like she'd been waiting to hear that exact sentence. Contract incoming, PDF, e-sign. Welcome to NovaTrack. The call ended. Everything felt weightless. Lena walked back to the conference room with the kind of clarity that only comes after a storm. Morgan was still droning on about professional boundaries as Lena stepped inside. No hesitation. Lena walked straight to the front of the room, right into the projector light. Conversations died instantly. Quick announcement, she said, voice steady. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. Gasps. A pen dropped. Someone whispered, Holy shit. Morgan laughed a sharp, ugly sound. That's not how this works. You need clearance, offboarding, approval. Lena held up her phone, the glowing PDF signature visible from rows away. Signed contract, NovaTrack Logistics, director level. I don't need your approval. Morgan froze, her mouth half open. A few people in the back straightened in their chairs, eyes wide. From the corner of the room, CEO Richard Hale stood up silently and slipped out like he wanted no part of the explosion. Lena turned to the team. If anyone wants to work somewhere people actually matter, you know where to find me. She didn't wait for applause. She didn't need it. Lena walked out the door, calm, steady, unstoppable, leaving Morgan standing in the flickering projector glow, surrounded by the ruins she never realized she built. The rise at NovaTrack. Lena expected her first day at NovaTrack to feel foreign, maybe even overwhelming. Instead, it felt like walking into a place she had unknowingly been preparing for her entire life. The downtown office was smaller than Axis's sprawling beige maze, but every inch of it hummed with energy, real energy, not the forced team spirit posters Axis taped to their break room walls. Concrete floors, clean glass, minimalist desks, and people who actually looked awake, driven, curious, alive. As Lena stepped through the glass doors, several employees glanced up, not with suspicion, but with recognition. Like they already knew her story, like they'd already been rooting for her. A voice called out from a corner office. Lena Hart? Ava Cole appeared, sleeves rolled up, tablet in one hand, espresso in the other. She crossed the room with confidence that didn't need volume to be powerful. Welcome to your kingdom, Ava said with a grin, opening her arms as if presenting the entire floor. Lena laughed, the sound shaking off the last remnants of Axis's tight collar culture. Ava led her to a modest but bright office, glass walls, clean desk, 2 monitors, and a nameplate that caught Lena's breath. Lena Hart, Director of Client Integration. It didn't feel like a promotion. It felt like a declaration. Within hours, Lena was already working. Not because anyone forced her, but because she wanted to build. She opened a blank spreadsheet, her clean slate, and began carving out the foundation of a new system. This time, she didn't have to hide it. She didn't have to build it after hours. She didn't have to fear anyone deleting her work in front of a room full of silent coworkers. Here, it mattered. 2 hours into her quiet rhythm, her phone rang. Unknown number. but the name that popped up on the voicemail preview made her stop cold.
Sophia Delacroix, the winery owner.
Lena answered immediately. Sophia? It's Lena. Sophia didn't waste a second. I knew you left Axis the moment their response time tanked. NovaTrack's on my radar. Tell me, are you taking new clients? Lena smiled. We are now. That call turned into a full-service discussion, custom routing ideas, packaging solutions, and a shared laugh over the time her palette of tasting kits arrived chipped. By the end, Sophia said, "Send me the onboarding packet. Let's make this official." 1 hour later, Lena got another call. Ben Carver, the ice cream distributor. Your name popped up on my LinkedIn, he said. Had to see if you landed somewhere smart. If you're building something new, I'm in. Lena leaned back, stunned. She hadn't advertised anything. She hadn't messaged anyone. People were finding her. The third call sealed it. A regional pet supply chain that had always been lukewarm with Axis. The manager nearly melted when Lena remembered his aging dog, Max. Max had hip surgery last year, Lena said. There was a full second of stunned silence. You remembered, he whispered. Then, how soon can we move our Midwest lanes to NovaTrack? By the end of week 1, Lena had 3 switchover meetings scheduled and 2 contracts already under review. No discounts, no pitches, no pressure. Just trust. Ava walked over on Friday afternoon holding an iPad. She tilted it so Lena could see the analytics dashboard. 43%, Ava said. That's our month-over-month growth after your first week. Lena blinked. That can't be right. Oh, it's right, Ava replied. You're not building a client list, Lena. You're building a loyal following. Word started spreading faster than any marketing campaign. Drivers, route coordinators, vendors who'd gone years without a reliable point of contact suddenly remembered the one person who made them feel heard. Messages began pouring into Lena's inbox. Are you taking new accounts? Can we switch lanes? Heard you're at NovaTrack now. And with every call, every email, every handshake, Lena realized something. Axis had treated her humanity like a flaw. NovaTrack treated it like a superpower. And she was only getting started. The collapse of Axis. While Lena was quietly building a rising empire at NovaTrack, Axis Freight Solutions was beginning to rot from the inside, and the rot spread fast. At first, the cracks were small. Clients stopped responding as quickly. Weekly check-ins took longer. Drivers complained that management felt cold or off. But nobody at Axis knew the real reason. The single person who had been holding together the company's fragile ecosystem, silently, invisibly, was gone. Within 2 weeks, the first major blow landed. Sophia Delacroix, the boutique winery owner, sent an official notice ending her long-term shipping agreement with Axis. She didn't use harsh words. She didn't need to. Her email was only one sentence. I prefer working with people who pay attention. Her staff posted the announcements on LinkedIn, and it gained traction quickly. She didn't name names. She didn't mention Lena. But the implication was loud enough to echo through the logistics industry. Then came the second hit. Ben Carver, the ice cream distributor who had been with Axis for years, ended his contract not with an email, but with a public post praising NovaTrack's superior client understanding. He wrote, "Some companies run trucks, some run relationships. I'm choosing the latter." People noticed. Axis's leadership panicked. Morgan Blake, who had once fired off snappy commands with absolute confidence, began sending templated, personalized emails to try to win clients back. But the templates were sloppy. Names were wrong, dates mismatched, details fake or outdated. One email wished a warehouse manager happy retirement when he had only gone on a 2-week cruise.
Another asked about a dog that had died 6 months earlier. A client forwarded one of Morgan's tone-deaf messages directly to NovaTrack with the subject line, "Too little, too late." Internally, Axis spiraled. The board launched an investigation into why retention numbers had fallen off a cliff. Morgan blamed Lena, claiming she had poached customers. But the data told a different story. Every client who moved to NovaTrack had contacted Lena first after the infamous deletion meeting. Not one had been solicited. Axis leadership had no defense. Then the financial bleeding started. 2 regional branches reported catastrophic drops in renewal rates. A third division admitted it had lost 5 accounts in 3 days. The once stable company suddenly found itself dangerously overstaffed with nothing to service. Within a month, Axis held its first emergency restructuring meeting in a decade. They cut nearly 1/3 of their workforce. They sold 2 regional divisions to a small Chicago-based logistics firm no one had heard of. Whispers spread among remaining staff. This started when Lena left. Morgan pushed out the wrong person. "We're paying for that meeting." And then Morgan herself vanished. One morning she was there, pacing in her office, sending frantic emails. The next day her desk was cleared. By afternoon, someone spotted her updated LinkedIn headline. "Consultant Organizational Efficiency, available for short-term contracts." No mention of Axis, no mention of leadership, just a faded headshot and the digital equivalent of a blank stare. Axis Freight Solutions didn't collapse overnight. It collapsed the moment it treated humanity like a liability and lost the one person who understood it was the only thing holding the entire empire together. The offer from the old CEO and Lena's refusal. The call came on a Wednesday morning, just as Lena was finalizing a custom onboarding plan for a new regional grocery chain. Her assistant knocked lightly on the glass. "Lena, you have an urgent call from Richard Hale." Lena paused. The name felt like a ghost from another life. She picked up. "Richard," she said, her tone neutral. "Lena." His voice was smoother than she remembered. Too smooth. The voice of a man trying to hide a wildfire behind him. "I'm hoping we can discuss a possible path forward," he began. Lena leaned back in her chair. "I didn't realize we were still on the same road." He forced a small laugh. "Axis has had a challenging few months. We've reassessed certain leadership dynamics and would like to offer you a position." "Here it comes." "Senior Vice President of Client Strategy," he said. "Full control over engagement systems, hiring, direction, everything you were building before. Double your previous salary, annual bonus, stock options." "And anything else?" Lena asked lightly. "A full team under you. Your structure, your call. We're willing to be flexible." There it was. Desperation wrapped in corporate politeness. The same company that mocked her for caring about people was now begging her to rebuild what they had destroyed. Lena let the silence sit until it grew uncomfortable. "Richard," she said finally, "NovaTrack gave me all of that before any of it was trending." He exhaled softly, defeated. "I understand, but I don't think you see the scale of what we're offering." "I see it," Lena replied. "And I'm not coming back." He didn't argue, didn't beg, just muttered a quiet, "Understood," before ending the call. For Lena, it wasn't revenge. It was clarity. The door she walked out of would stay closed permanently. Becoming a powerhouse at NovaTrack. At NovaTrack, Lena didn't just fit in. She became the engine that rewired the entire company. What started as a single spreadsheet slowly evolved into a full-scale client intelligence system, one that blended data with humanity in a way the logistics world had never seen. And leadership noticed. Within weeks, Lena wasn't just meeting expectations, she was redefining them. Teams began stopping by her office, asking how she remembered things so easily. A driver's newborn, a client's renovation, a pet recovering from surgery. Lena didn't hoard her methods, she taught them. Soon, NovaTrack's culture started to mirror her approach, personal, responsive, and fiercely loyal. By the end of her first quarter, Ava Cole promoted her to managing partner of client division. Lena now led an entire floor, with analysts, coordinators, and onboarding teams reporting directly to her. Instead of pushing numbers, they shared stories, snapshots of lives behind every shipment. And somehow, that made the numbers climb even faster. Clients didn't just stay. They followed. They referred. They advocated. NovaTrack didn't just grow. It surged. And everyone in the building knew why. Lena had turned empathy into strategy, and strategy into dominance. Final reflection and legacy. In the quiet moments, usually early mornings, before the floor filled with voices and ringing phones, Lena would sometimes stand by the tall windows of NovaTrack's headquarters and look down at the city that once felt too big for her. Now it felt different. Not smaller, but reachable, navigable. Hers. She never imagined her legacy would grow from something as simple and as radical as paying attention. But that was the truth of it. While the logistics world obsessed over speed, automation, efficiency, and cost-cutting, Lena had rediscovered the one resource no company seemed to value anymore: humanity. It wasn't a strategy she learned in a seminar. It wasn't a module in corporate training. It was instinct, quiet, inconvenient, and easily dismissed by people like Morgan. Yet it turned out to be the foundation for everything NovaTrack achieved. Years from now, people would look at the charts, the explosive retention rates, the client satisfaction spikes, the record-breaking renewals, and think NovaTrack had invested millions in software or analytics. They wouldn't know that it all came from a spreadsheet Lena built in secret, late at night, in a company that thought it was worthless. But her team knew. Her clients knew. Drivers stopped by her office just to talk, leaving behind donuts or quick jokes about long routes. Clients sent her holiday cards with handwritten notes, thanking her for remembering things nobody else bothered to ask about. New hires shadowed her for days, not to learn logistics, but to learn the rhythm of connection, the art of listening. Ava once told her, "You didn't just transform NovaTrack. You rewrote the rules of the entire industry." And Lena believed her not out of arrogance, but because the evidence was everywhere. Competitors scrambled to copy NovaTrack's relationship model, sending scripted, personalized messages that never quite landed because they weren't real. They didn't understand that sincerity isn't a strategy, it's a practice. Lena's greatest satisfaction didn't come from promotions, though she earned them. It didn't come from the stunning financial rise, though she drove it. It came from the quiet, steady knowledge that she built something no one could delete with a single keystroke again. Her legacy wasn't revenge, even though Axis had collapsed under the weight of its own indifference. Her legacy wasn't the title on her door or the floor she managed. Her legacy was the culture she created, one in which people mattered, where details weren't distractions, where empathy wasn't an extra step, but the first one. And because of that, NovaTrack didn't just ship freight. It moved people. It earned loyalty. It changed lives. And somewhere deep inside, Lena knew. She had finally become impossible to ignore, not by shouting, but by caring louder than anyone else ever dared.